Titanfall. Dead in the water and stuck in limbo. It's likely we'll never see the revive of this game. The overwhelming success of Apex Legends, it's all but gone. A loved memory by everyone who played it, or continues to play it. Titanfall 1 released as a purely multiplayer game, with fast movement and iconic gunplay. It truly brought out the kid in us all. While looking around in a giant mech, battling it out, and running on walls with silky smooth movement, this game was all but guaranteed to get a sequel, which it did. Introducing Titanfall 2. Improving on everything the previous game did, Titanfall 2 should have been a slam dunk, securing the studio for a third installment, but Titanfall 2 dropped in the middle of two massive games, that being Call of Duty and Battlefield, all but cementing its own downfall. Despite this game being polished and incredibly fun, it was overshadowed by these giants of the industry. So, what went wrong? Why did Apex succeed where Titanfall failed? What drew players to keep coming back for years on end? Well, let's find out, shall we? As I previously mentioned, Titanfall 2 released in the middle of two giants, this being Call of Duty and Battlefield. Two games that dominated the first-person shooter space for well over a decade at this point. Releasing on October 28th, 2016, it aimed to capitalize on the popularity of FPSs at the time. Hoping the hype of something new and overall success of the first game would be enough to bring players back. But players already knew Call of Duty. They'd been playing it for years, and at this point it just so happened that this Call of Duty was eerily similar to the Titanfall gameplay. So, given the decision on taking the chance on a less known game of similar gameplay, players weren't having it. Battlefield players favouring the boots on the ground and more realistic gameplay, they didn't want the giant mechs and wall running. They wanted tanks and helicopters, planting yourself miles away to make a sniper shot across the map and let it be known that you are the GOAT. Whereas Apex released at a time players were crying out for something new in the space it was within, ultimately capitalizing on what players wanted. People cried out for a more gun-focused, skill-based battle royale, where you weren't forced to spend hours learning how to build a skyscraper to combat the kid who'd already sunk countless hours into this game. Opting for a more realistic and gritty style, people were more than happy to take a leap, take a chance to move over. Realizing this was what they'd been waiting for, a perfect balance of arcade-like and realistic, people fell in love. Releasing on February the 4th, 2019, Apex was instantly beloved by fans, as they flocked to this game, downloading it and jumping straight in. Now both games released with a plethora of content, Titanfall 2 releasing with a wide range of guns, all different in their own way, several different characters to choose from, which all came with their own special abilities, multiple titans to suit your playstyle. I'd be lying if I said the game lacked content, that the devs didn't give you anything new to try or do. That's not to say that Apex didn't also do this, releasing with a whole roster of different characters, all with their own playstyles and abilities, adding cosmetics, which we will talk about later, and a whole armada of guns to choose from. Both games released with an overall polish that in recent years we haven't seen. These were two games that knew what they wanted, two games that tried something new. However, it wouldn't be fair to compare them before we first talk about Titanfall 2 opted to stick to what it knew and play it safe, choosing the first-person shooter genre. Something players have known and loved for years, the arcade-like gameplay of sprinting around and shooting your enemy. It did set itself apart, doing away with the kill streaks you were used to, like UAVs and helicopters. Titanfall had its titans, giant mechs that you can call down to pilot yourself, all with their own design and abilities. This set each one apart, giving you the choice of your playstyle. You could use the slow walking tank or the fast paced sniper with high damage and no defense. They wanted players to have options, which is why they didn't stop there. They give each character its own ability as well. While these weren't game changing, they did enhance the gameplay. Titanfall's ultimate aim was to take the fast paced gameplay of something like Call of Duty and make it their own, making it quicker, better, and overall more exciting, hoping players would see this and choose their game instead. Apex took a completely different approach, sticking to a lot of what Titanfall brought to the table, with its quick movement and fast-paced gameplay, but changing the genre. Sort of. Gone is the arcade team deathmatch gameplay in favour for a new and upcoming game mode that was taking the world by storm at the time: Battle Royales. I could make a whole video on Battle Royales himself, but I'm sure at this point everybody knows what they are, so a brief rundown should suffice. Battle Royales are a game mode where you drop into a map scattered with points of interest. You have to secure yourself weapons, meds, ammos, and other various items to help you battle it out. However, this isn't just you versus them, this is normally you versus everyone else. As a team drops in and loots up, the aim is to be the last survivor in an ever-closing circle, or storm, battling each other as you go. But what makes Apex different? Why did it stand out? As I previously mentioned, there was two games dominating this category at the time, that being Fortnite and PUBG. PUBG sticking to the realism with slower gameplay and realistic graphics, this was favoured amongst the older players. Fortnite, a cartoon-style game which favoured your ability to build over your ability with a weapon, each holding their own spot at the top. Enter Apex Legends, a game that took aspects from both of these and combined it with Titanfall, giving you different legends all with their own playstyle, a variation of creative weaponry to battle it out with, game-changing abilities that could turn the tide of a fight in an instant. Apex took what players loved in the genre and made it their own, making it more fast-paced, more intense, and overall more enjoyable, taking players of all ages and bringing them together. As we all know, games have been increasing in price year by year, going from what was considered a reasonable amount of £40 to an outstanding £70, if not more for a base game, which means that every time you buy a game, you're taking the gamble of liking it or not for a much dearer price, which we all understand. This is how companies make their money. For us to get more games that we love, they have to turn a profit. They have to see some comeback from the games they've put so much work into. With this being said, gamers also want to see their money hasn't been wasted. They want value for their game. They want to choose to purchase. They don't want something that's rushed and unplayable. Titanfall's 2 base game was released with a price tag of £30, which included the full multiplayer experience, but also a short and enjoyable campaign. This was a fair price to charge for a game with so much content, something that wouldn't turn players off right away, something that might even entice them to spend that bit of money and try the game out. It released selling an estimated 4 million units, which is by no stretch of the imagination a bad launch. It was however not what the game needed. With its direct competition outselling the game, showing the devs, players would rather spend a little extra for a game they knew than save a little for a game they didn't. Apex however doesn't face this problem, instead opting for something that has become more normal in recent years and taking the free-to-play option, ultimately helping this game to grow to the giant it has become today. Gone is the weight of purchasing something only to find out you don't enjoy it and you've wasted your hard-earned cash. Now, players could do this at no expense, enticing more and more people to pick up the game just to see if they enjoy it. But you might be asking, well, you said the game needs to make money to survive. If they're giving it away, how do they do this? And you're completely right. Microtransactions. Small amounts of money you can spend to get a variation of things. See, when Apex launched, it launched with a total of 8 different playable characters, 2 of these being locked. To unlock these, you could either grind hours of the game for the currency, or pay a small amount to unlock right away. This is the whole model, locking something behind a paywall that players can also earn for free, giving you the option. However, this wouldn't be enough to support the game alone. This is where we introduce something that in recent years has taken over the gaming industry is cosmetics. I'm not saying that these weren't present in games before, because they were just a little different. See, games used to use cosmetics as a way of progression. For example, take Call of Duty, which would reward you with weapon camos after completing challenges. The more challenges, the more camos. And a lot of games still use this system to this day, one of those being Titanfall 2, Where you'll complete different challenges, you gain different weapon skins and different operator skins. Nothing groundbreaking or game-changing, but something offered to the player free of charge. However, in recent years, cosmetics have been the cornerstone of many games, most of these games being free to play, offering you a complete overhaul of a character or weapon's design for a small price. This is how companies who make free-to-play games make their money. This is microtransactions. These often range from a basic recolor to something completely different, allowing creativity to run wild. While this doesn't give you any advantage within the game, players still love these, showing you they aren't just some filthy casual who's trying out their character, but a weathered veteran. Apex took this model, offering players a wide range of cosmetics, not only for their character, but for weapons too, allowing the players to change everything, allowing you to decide, from basic recolors to overhauling an entire character's design, releasing these very often. Releasing limited edition skins around events and themes, giving players a sense of rarity and urgency, convincing you that you need it. But how do these change? How do these look different? Well, let's talk about Titanfall 2 has a variety of different characters. I briefly touch upon these, but I'd like to break them down somewhat as each is unique in their own way, in design, gameplay, and overall feel. Each of them adding something. Take for example, the pilot that goes invisible. Now, at first glance this could seem overpowered and unfair, but one thing that Titanfall does really well is balancing. Yes, you might be able to go invisible for a couple seconds, but you also have a guy who can phase into another realm entirely, becoming immune and gaining a speed boost. And last but not least, my personal favourite, the grapple, allowing you to swim from building to building, keeping that momentum of the gameplay. But, as you'd expect, Apex took this and improved it, taking what people loved and building upon it, making it better, making it their own. Just like Titanfall, Apex also has different characters, starting out with 8 but making its way to a whopping 25, as of the time I'm writing this script. However, we will touch upon why this is shortly. For now, I'd like to take a deeper look at those characters, specifically the original 8, as this is what players would have seen when they first opened the game. Take Mirage for instance, borrowing from the invisibility trope and the clone trope of Titanfall, but building upon it, having him not only turn invisible, but create clones of himself. Or Bloodhound, a wide range scan to find enemies, giving him and his team temporary wall hacks. At first, these sound broken and busted, but Apex managed to balance these, making all of them different. Each character doesn't get one ability, but they get 3. That being a passive, an active, and an ultimate, all sticking true to the theme of their character, all playing into that gameplay, allowing people to get invested into the ones they love, the ones they relate to, gripping people at its core, making them want to improve and be the best at it that they could be. Allowing for players to get creative, what they could achieve and how they could play the game. Doing this, giving your players so much choice, is what boosted the game along, making it stand out from other games in its genre. But the characters weren't the only thing that mattered. They weren't the only things that kept players coming back. One of the biggest parts of any FPS is its gunplay. After all, this is what the game is designed around, killing your opponent. So it's safe to say that nailing this is vital, which I believe both Titanfall and Apex do. Having very similar aspects for both games, these titles focus more on running and gunning. It strives in its fast-paced gameplay that players have grown to love. If you've ever played a game of Titanfall, or have been paying attention to the gameplay, you'll notice that aiming down sights is something rarely done in this game, as hipfiring is considered widely more effective for this type of game, with a wide array of weapons each feeling unique in its own way. For example, the submachine guns with their fast rate of fire and low fall-off damage, their overall use of close-quarter combat is widely superior to the assault rifle. But this isn't anything new to an FPS. What is something a little different? How each different weapon in its category feels. No two weapons in this game feel the same. With different rates of fire, ammo type, hipfire pattern, the game encourages you to find what you love and use it. But you might be asking yourself, what about the Titans? And you'd be right, with each one of these having their own array of weapons. Take the fast-moving Ronin with its close-quarters shotgun, or the hulking mech that uses fire and grenades to dominate the battlefield. all of these feeling so different and so much fun. Now it's safe to say that taking these down would be a massive task, which is why Titanfall also offers you anti-Titan weapons. From a simple rocket launcher to a laser beam, these all serve the same purpose to take down these mechs. Now, how does Apex square up against such a huge roster of choice? It has customization, while keeping the same theme of having categories and following the same rules of most other FPSs. Apex does it a little differently, giving you different ways each weapon in its category works. It uses the rate of fire, the way the weapon works, the type of ammo, the amount of bullets fired per shot. But this isn't all it does. As I said before, this is a battle royale, so if you could just find the best weapon of spawn, chances are you'd win. So to balance this, Apex uses attachments, giving you different sights, stocks, magazines, barrels, and other various amounts of choice, allowing you to turn what would have been a high recoil, high damage to something with controllable recoil and good damage. But not all attachments are usable on all weapons, to stop everyone finding exactly what they wanted at all times. With sights that change how you play and weapon chips that completely change how the guns function, this offers so much opportunity for each game, keeping things fresh and exciting for the player, ultimately making them want to play again. However, each attachment comes with a variety. The better the attachment, the more function it provides. But these aren't the only weapons in Apex. As I stated before, Apex has character abilities, and some of these are direct use of weapons, meaning that if you favour a certain playstyle but don't want to take up a portion of your 2 weapon slots, there is a chance you won't have to. See, Apex knew what it was doing, creating weapons for everyone, meaning that everyone could play the game how they wanted, sitting and sniping to rushing in and blasting the shit out of everything that moves. The game wanted it to be the player's choice, but still requires some amount of luck, making it so that if you aren't guaranteed to find the weapon you want, oftentimes forcing you to switch things up, forcing you to try out more of the game. Apex kept the fast-paced gameplay of Titanfall and streamlined it with its own legends, making sure each style of play was an option, and that each player had something for themselves, adding new and exciting weapons over time. Something players have grown used to in recent years is free updates to a game to keep it alive and fresh, giving everyone something new to try out and oftentimes bringing players back. Titanfall and Apex both did this throughout, Titanfall releasing with its own free DLC to play after launch, adding 2 new weapons, a new Titan, and some other balancing patches. It shaked things up, kept things exciting, and giving players something new. This made people want to come back to the game, wanted to try it again. But with the slow decline in players, the devs didn't see the point in pouring more time and effort into it, so with nothing on the horizon, players simply abandoned it, coming to the realization that all they were left with was the small balance patches and the same gameplay they were used to. Only the hardcore fans and lovers of the game stuck around. In recent years, it's become harder and harder to keep the players engaged, always craving something new to do, so when a game decides it doesn't want to do this anymore, the players decide they don't want to play. This is where Apex hugely differs. Since launch, Apex has had a whopping 25 different seasons, each adding major changes to the game, being new maps, legends, weapons, game modes, and much, much more. This kept bringing players back, whilst keeping the existing players happy. It meant that if you didn't like something, you didn't have to wait for there to be something new that would bring you back to the table. It also meant that if you took a break from the game, you was coming back to a plethora of content to try out. With a constant stream of updates and balancing, players felt that their time and effort was being justified. They felt the game was cared about. They weren't scared something they were sinking their time, hours, and love into wasn't being reciprocated by the devs. But after the official release of Apex, it got its most vital update. Something that cements its place in gamers' minds. Something that kept people grinding. Now Titanfall doesn't have this system, instead opting for a more casual feel. You can hop into any game mode and just have fun with it, without feeling the need to sweat. This comes with both positives and negatives. The player base who might play a few hours a day will enjoy this, not having to grind their way through, and can just hop on and have fun. But, as we've all learned, players want something to strive for. They want to say they're better than you. They want something to show for it. This is where ranked comes in. Ranked game modes are often how players show their skill, proving if you're the best of the best, or if you belong at the bottom with the scrubs. Apex introducing this enhanced the gaming experience, giving the players the option to show how good they were, how they were better than their friends, enemies, and overall everyone else. It also meant that players who didn't want to play the more grindy version still had other options, oftentimes allowing the casual player to have a better experience overall. They won't be met with the teams of tryhards, showing off how many hours a day they sink into the game, but met with people more like them, who just wanted to play for the fun of it. Now, I'm not going to go into great lengths of how rank systems work within a game, but I will give you a brief rundown. Basically, everyone starts at a base rank. The more points you earn, this being through kills, placements, winning or losing, the higher and faster you climb the ranks. After so long, players will start at a negative amount of points, which means that you actively have to do those things to make sure you keep climbing the ranks. This mode also matches you with players of your skill. If you're better, you'll climb. If you're worse, you'll fall. And if you belong there, you'll stay there, with ranks resetting twice a season, giving players something to constantly push for, rewards that show you where you were on the leaderboard, giving you all the bragging rights amongst fellow players and peers. It's safe to say that people both love and hate ranked game modes, but one thing that you can't deny is that ranked oftentimes prolongs a game's lifespan. Look at a game like League of Legends, for example, following all the same tropes of Apex, albeit in a completely different type. It survived 15 years and become a global sensation. This is mostly down to its rank feature, giving players who are better the chance to prove that they simply are just better. While both Titanfall and Apex are both good games within their own rights, I believe Apex delivered where Titanfall couldn't. Apex knew it wasn't going to be able to buy people in, making them pay, so it opted for a free-to-play. And new players love shiny things, so it used its cosmetics. Titanfall seems to be a stepping stone for the devs, something they loved and cared about, so they wanted to continue it. Hence the reasons Apex borrows and uses a lot of the same tropes, weapons, and gameplay as Titanfall. You can see the raw passion and care for both of these games, but I do honestly believe that Titanfall 2 could have been a success, had more players known and given it a chance. Whilst it still has a player base and you can certainly still play it, it's safe to say that Titanfall lost its support years ago. Being rampaged by hackers and people who've played the game since its release, it's hard for anyone to want to pick this game up today. I will say the game is still fun, but it does lack the overall replayability that Apex has. It lacks keeping things fresh, and oftentimes I found around 45 minutes to an hour it felt the same. Overall, both games were a success in their own rights. Ultimately, Apex delivered where Titanfall couldn't. It kept a healthier player base and continues to be supported to this day. So we're left to sit here and wonder, would the success of Titanfall 2 have changed things? Would it have continued to be supported? Would it have had a sequel? Would people have ultimately abandoned it for the next Call of Duty the following year? But I guess we'll never truly know.